Thank you, Mahesh, for joining us. It's such a pleasure and an honor to have you. Um, so we are on the Being Yoga Festival. We have about 1 million people watching this across our various partners, through Paytm, through Shimaru, our various digital partners, through Airtel, through Tata Sky. Thank you again for joining our festival. The intention of this entire program is to give. We're trying to raise money to support migrant workers and daily wage laborers across India. So we're on Facebook. There's a little button right below the screen in which we're encouraging people to give. We've had a wonderful lineup. We've been going live since 7 a.m. So reaching just the last bit of our live marathon. So, and the purpose of this particular segment is motivation, and we've been talking about spirituality, we've been talking about nutrition, but now we're really trying to gain some motivation, especially now with the lockdown being extended. People really need that little bit of motivation. So Mahesh, first, I would like to hear from you. Why is it important to give? Because we're encouraging people to give via the Facebook Social for Good fundraiser, via our website, beingyogafestival.org. If you could just share 2 or 3 lines about why each one of us should give a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways I think you can answer that. I mean, I think the easiest way for me to answer it is because I think we're a lot more fortunate than a lot of people. Currently there's so much, fear and distress and suffering going on across, you know, just the masses and, as you said, the migrant workers, that it is, heartbreaking for us to see. I mean, just a couple of times I've been to the grocery store, and you feel like you're going out to buy essentials, and obviously you're buying stuff like chocolates and cereal and pasta, and when you come out you've got kids, literally 8, 9, 10-year-old kids who are just standing there and waiting for handouts of rice and dal and atta, and it's just heartbreaking. And yeah, I mean, I don't think in a time like this where everyone is suffering at different levels, it's hard for anyone or everyone to give. I know literally everybody I speak to is giving in some way or the other, and yeah, I'm glad you guys thought of me to help you guys promote raising funds again.
Thank you so much, Mahesh. And the purpose of this conversation, I didn't introduce you because you need no introduction. You were one of India's first tennis players to win a Grand Slam. You're one of the 8 people ever in the world to have a Grand Slam career. And that's incredible. And you've been playing tennis. I mean, you played tennis professionally for years and years and went to so many tennis tournaments since you were really quite young. And what this teaches you is how to manage stress. Every time before a tennis match, you're doing this over and over again. There's so much pressure, from coaches, from people, from fans, from the nation, from the world to really perform and to win. So, I mean, from you, what we really wanted to know is how do you manage stress? The whole world is going, moving in such unknown directions. There's so much stress, right? There's stress about, oh, can I get COVID-19? Can I pass on this disease to my parents or to my children if I get it? There's stress about, I don't know if I'm going to have my job tomorrow. I don't know if there's going to be a salary cut. There's worry about the work. There's worry about so many different things. And we're reaching really quite a stressed out state. BK Shivani ji was here earlier, and she was saying that that depression is on the rise, anxiety is on the rise, psychology, mental health. There's a big problem. This is a very silent epidemic which is on the rise that we can't even see it. It's an invisible epidemic. It's its own pandemic. So how would you, someone who has had so much experience really managing stress, what kind of tips and advice can you give to people?
So, I mean, it's a very hard question to answer because this is unprecedented, right? I mean, when you normally deal with stress, for me as an athlete, you're dealing with the stress of preparation, you're dealing with the stress of performance, you're dealing with the stress of dealing with losses, and no confidence and so on. But in today's situation, you've got a whole list of different kinds of stress that you're going on at the same time. I mean, you're dealing with protecting your kids, you're dealing with protecting your parents because they're the vulnerable ones. You're dealing with having to pay your EMIs, you're dealing with having to figure out salaries. If you own a business, you're dealing with having to pay salaries even though there's no money. So there's a whole list going on at the same time. So what I am doing is I'm prioritizing and trying to knock them out one by one. And I think that comes from some sort of discipline. In sport, you grow up with a lot of discipline, and without discipline, you're unable to kind of put in the work day in and day out, regardless of the frustration, regardless of the boredom. But it's an unprecedented time. So figuring out health, friends, family is priority. Making sure you can be smart and protect yourself and protect everyone around you. The financials are going to be a strain on everybody across the world and across the classes. It just depends on how much you can manage that and find ways to pivot or bounce back as fast as you can. I mean, again, that comes down to discipline and being maybe innovative and creative.
No, that's wonderful. And I think that comes from your training as a sportsman, right? It's about that discipline that you've applied in your life in tennis. And you're trying to bring that discipline into now to deal with this particular stressful situation. Do you have any personal tips and tricks, Mahesh, that you do, a certain practice that you do to manage very stressful moments, a certain routine, something that you can share with all of us to so we can try and take from that?
Well, honestly, because I try to internalize it a lot. I don't want to kind of, I don't talk about it because it's, I've got, besides, having the family, I've got multiple businesses that I run. So each one has going through its own stress pattern right now on the financial avenue. So I don't talk about it a lot, but what I do is I do have a routine, right? I try to stay disciplined on the routine, what, whether it's waking up at a certain time, making sure there's, X amount of time dedicated to work, to family, to exercise, to just hanging out and making sure that we're doing the right thing as a family. And I'm also kind of trying to install that into my 8-year-old today. I mean, it's very hard for kids, to be locked up in four walls. So we're trying to make it work. And luckily for kids, they're part aware and they're part unaware of what is actually going on. So uh, my whole thing is just revolves again around discipline.
So Mahesh, what is your routine looking like these days? How are you maintaining? What is the routine that you've set during lockdown?
So luckily, my kid's back in Saira's back in school, online school. So I get up and I make sure I sit with her before she gets online, and then I spend a couple of hours working, just with the different teams on calls, on video calls, kind of trying to communicate a lot, just because they're going through a different kind of stress as well. So a lot of communication. I've signed up for a couple of those Harvard courses that a lot of people have signed up because Harvard's been kind enough to kind of give them out free. So I've signed up for a couple of them and doing a little
That's
bit of
nice.
studying and learning a couple of times a day, a couple hours a day. And evening around 4:30 to 6, it's kind of the workout time for the family. So I'm working out, Lara's working out, Saira's hitting some balls on the wall. And yeah, in the evening, I mean, we're binge watching a lot of TV. That's after we put the little one to bed. So it's a good mix of work, fitness, and family time.
Are you enjoying this time? It sounds like quite a nice routine, actually, Mahesh, to be honest.
I
I
think
mean,
Yeah, honestly, I'm thanks to technology. I think thanks to technology, we haven't suffered too much. I mean, obviously, I think it's unfair to say that with all the suffering that's going on outside, and the access we have to online delivery. I mean, we've been able to kind of pivot quickly and make sure that most of the things that we need is still happening. I mean, we were just discussing this morning. I mean, it's nice to have school on and have her around because every time she's got a 2-minute bathroom break, she comes and hangs out with us. So we're being spoiled right now, I think.
That's a wonderful way to look at it. No, but it actually seems like you've carved out a really nice kind of thing. And what I love is the 4:30 to 6 kind of family workout time. Can you tell us a little bit about that? So you guys all leave what you're doing and you guys come and work out for 2.5 hours. Is there things stuff that you do together? Is it sort of, I don't know, how are you guys doing managing within your apartment? Because I know that obviously you can't go outside, you can't go to the
Yeah,
gym. So what are the kind of things that you're doing? And this is actually very valuable with people with kids, what you're sharing right now,
yeah.
because how do couples keep fit together and how do they get their kids involved in also a little bit of physical exercise? Because as you said, being cooped for children, especially being cooped up in four walls the whole day, can be can be quite boring and stressful in a different kind of a way.
Yeah, so luckily we've got a little bit of an outside area, so which we are making the best use of during the lockdown. So, yeah, I mean, we're trying to innovate. There's a lot of skipping going on. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of jumping jacks going on. We don't have a lot of equipment, but we got the TheraBands. There's gymnastics going on. I mean, Sarah does dance class twice a week online. So sometimes I'm at the background, so her teacher can't see me, and I'm doing the class with her just to kind of change my exercise routine around because it is getting kind of monotonous. So we're improvising, but we try and make that time at least together at least 5 times a week. So that we need to keep healthy. I mean, healthy and active. I mean, that's a big part of what we do and our image as well. So, I mean, it keeps us going.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good to know because, for you both, you and Lara, as public figures and as celebrities, it is really important. I mean, your physical bodies and as you said, your image, it's very important to keep physically fit. So taking out that time, but also actually involving your daughter in it is quite wonderful. And I love what you said about going back to things like skipping and jumping jacks and things like that, which are typically, we don't really do those anymore. But it's nice to go back to the basics. It's
Yeah.
nice to go back to what we used to do once upon a time, and coming back to all of that. And what about eating? Has your sort of have you changed your diet or your nutrition, or it's kind of trying to maintain a similar kind of thing with that?
So the eating with me has taken a beating. I mean, I think I've just kind of made peace with the fact that I need comfort food in a time like this, and I have not stayed disciplined when it comes to my eating. Normally, I am pretty disciplined when it comes to my eating, but in this time, it's just kind of haywire. And every Monday morning, I wake up and I tell myself, this week I'm going to make an effort, and by Tuesday evening, I think that goes south. So I'm not able to control that. But I keep telling myself in a time like this, you got to do what you got to do to just keep the presence and peace of mind.
No, and that's actually a really good point here, Mahesh, because I do think that what you're saying is important. Even for me, I say that 4 p.m. banana bread and coffee that I have, I know it's not the best thing for me, but it gives me quite a lot of joy, so I'm going to continue to do it. And I do think that actually, you can see this in the lockdown, right? A lot of baking has been going on. A lot of people have been baking, baking bread, baking cookies, baking
Yeah.
muffins, baking cake, and obviously all of that is being eaten by someone, consumed by someone as well. But I do think there's a certain joy in it, and I think you're right. I think that this is, we do have to give ourselves certain lags, to keep ourselves going. And I think that's really nice to hear from you as well. That someone who remains as disciplined can sort of, and you're mentally making peace with that. I think that's really nice to hear as well, because sometimes we can be really hard on
Yeah, I
ourselves.
think you need to
We
balance
can
it
be
out,
really
right?
hard
I
on
mean, if
ourselves.
you're eating and yeah, I think the balance is key, right? If you're eating more than you're normally used to, and you're trying to put in that little workout, I mean, that kind of gives you a sense of, okay, you're trying to balance it out. But, at the end of the day, whenever this lockdown is over and whenever we're back to our, regular lives, it's just another 3 months of sacrifice and extra hard work to get back into shape. So I think, like I said, in this time where there's so much uncertainty around, if I need some comfort food, I've justified it in my head that I'm going to do it.
No, that's really wonderful to hear. And Mahesh, what are the? I know you mentioned the Harvard course. So is that sort of are these some of the goal settings that you've been doing for yourself? Have you sort of set certain goals for yourself, like the course that you mentioned during this time? That's my first question. The second thing is we have time for just about two more questions before we step in for audience questions. And the second thing is, do you have a sort of a meditation practice, a mindfulness practice that you regularly do, which you could recommend?
Uh, so I've always wanted to go to Harvard and do that executive course, but it never happened, and I'm sure it would never happen. And obviously, when this happened, I jumped at it. Even Lara signed up for two courses. But it's interesting because obviously, being the institutions that they are, just impart some knowledge that we probably never going to get in our lives. So I'm enjoying it. On the mindfulness question, right? It's something that I never trained for in my life. I regret it. Because I believe that mental strength plays a massive part in building your career regardless of what your profession is. I'm very keen that my daughter gets into it very early, and Lara meditates a lot. She, I think, meditates every day. So I've told her that that's her department, installing that discipline into Saira. So I didn't, but luckily I still was able to obviously have a certain amount of mental toughness when it came to playing tennis. So that has been able, I've been able to translate that off the court as well.
Yeah.
But I recommend it wholeheartedly, and people should definitely keep that in mind.
Mahesh, now moving on to a couple of questions. We have some wonderful questions coming in, and whoever is asking the best questions, which are being sent to me, they're actually winning some prizes. That's what
Okay.
we've done to encourage people to ask you good questions. We have a really good one here saying, how does one let competition not get to your performance? Because there's always that sense of competition with yourself, with other people. So how do you maintain that balance?
Yeah, I mean, competition exists in every walk of life. I mean, if you're a salesman or an athlete, I mean, you're always competing to try and get better and get results. Uh, regardless of the environment, I think you need to kind of focus on what you're good at and stick to your game plan. More often than not, you'll be surprised at what you can achieve and how you can climb the ladder. I mean, that's the way I've always looked at it. I mean, when you get to number one in the world at some point in life. When you're growing up, when you're 18, 19, you never dream of that stuff like that. But you break 200, you break 100, you break 50, you break 25. You're just focused on the process, regardless of who you're playing on the other side of the net. And if the process works for you, you win the match, you get the points, and you move up the ranking.
And Mahesh, that's a wonderful answer. And our last question is, what do you think? I mean, this time, especially for sports people, they're not able to train. They're not able to hit the courts. What do you think is, I mean, what do you think the future for them is going to be like? What advice do you have for them? Professionals who were like you, who are not able to train now, what would you say to them?
I mean, I mean, they've got ants in their pants at the moment. So I mean, it's very hard. I mean, when you're traveling 40 weeks a year to be cooped up, at home for months. So, I mean, all they can do is, like I said, work out as much as they can, burn the energy. There's a lot of frustration. There's no money coming in because they're not competing. So they got to find a way to create and, grind it out. They have no option.
Have no option, you gotta grind it out. So guys, I think that's a good one to end with. We don't have an option, just grind it out. This is kind of a one-liner, which is actually quite true. But thank you so much, Mahesh, for joining us. It was such a pleasure to have you
Thanks.
at the Being Yoga Festival. Thank you for sharing with us like a really candid view of what's going on. And I think what I picked up from your talk personally was that don't be so hard on yourself. It's okay to have a little bit of leeway in your schedule. And I think the other tip that you really gave to our viewers was about getting your kids involved in working out. That certain time that your family has set aside, that you, Lara, and your daughter are setting aside every day to work out together, do something physical together is nice. It gets the kids motivated. It gets everyone spending a little bit of time together away from screens. And I think that's really important. So thank you so much, Mahesh, for joining us.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mahesh. Bye. All right, everyone. That was Mahesh Bhupathi with us. We're just going to take about 7 minutes before Mukesh Bansal comes on. Mukesh Bansal has written an amazing book called No Limits, The Art and Science of High Performance, which I have personally loved reading this book. Mukesh Bansal is the founder of CultFit. Before CultFit, he was a founder of Mintra, and his story is amazing. It's really, really wonderful. And what CultFit has done for wellness and fitness for a particular generation is, again, absolutely astounding.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.